If you're buying or selling a property in the Myrtle Beach area, what happens if you're unable to attend the closing table in person? Shout out to Mark for asking this important question in the comments to a previous video that we did about the closing process in South Carolina. So today we're going to explain to you how the process works when you cannot or don't choose to be here in person for your real estate closing. Because the Myrtle Beach area has such a large secondary and investment property market, a big portion of the time buyers and sellers choose not to come to town to attend the closing in person, but instead they choose to close by mail. So the good news is that you don't have to be here to close on a property. So let's talk about how it's going to work when you're not here. Once you're under contract to buy or sell a property and have selected your closing attorney, we're going to need to let them know that you plan to close by mail and not attend the closing in person up front so they can plan accordingly. And if there's a lender involved, it's not a cash purchase, then they're going to need to coordinate with the lender to ensure that the lender gets them the closing package in time to do the mail away closing and still make the closing date. Everything else while you're waiting for your property to close is going to be the same as usual. However, once we get to that final week of closing, that's when all of this is going to come into play. So let's take an example of it. Let's say that you're closing on Friday, April 29th. The closing paperwork would need to get out to you on its way by Wednesday the 27th for you to sign Thursday the 28th, and then you overnight it back to arrive the 29th to make the closing. You're going to need to be prepared to sign Thursday early enough to get the paperwork back in the mail for a Friday morning delivery. Please note, depending on if you're the buyer or the seller, or if you have a lender involved or not, you may be required to sign some of the documents in front of a notary. Your closing attorney will make sure that you know exactly what you need to sign out of all the paperwork and if a notary will be required. And listen, banks in our area are no longer notarizing closing documents for real estate. So you need to make sure in advance that you plan to find a notary that's going to be able to do this for you on the right time. Ideally, if you let your realtor know in advance of making or accepting an offer, then we can ensure your closing date is a Wednesday or Thursday, which gives a buffer if there's a delay in the paperwork being returned. Because if it doesn't get here Friday, then that means no closing until Monday at the earliest. Another thing to consider, if you are a buyer and you have a lender, they are going to be required to send you a closing disclosure that you must sign receipt of at least 3 business days prior to your closing. And if a federal holiday falls within that 3-day period, then you have to add a 4th day to that. So if there's any delays and they don't get the closing package to the attorney in time because of this, then the mail away closing could be delayed as well. Your closing attorney can also email you the paperwork to print, sign, and return if it comes down to the wire and this is necessary. And many documents don't have to be notarized or have a wet signature. So if, for example, the settlement statement has to be changed at the very last minute, but you've already signed, notarized, mailed back all your paperwork, that's fine. A closing attorney can just change it, email it to you. You can print, sign, and email back, and we'll still close on time. As mentioned before, mail-away closings are a big portion of the property purchases in our area. So as long as you have a plan before making or accepting an offer, your realtor, closing attorney, and lender can all work together to meet the closing date with no delays. But listen, while pre-planning is always the best, we totally understand that sometimes when you purchase a property or sell a property, you don't know if you're going to be able to be there in person to sign the documents, and maybe something changes and you thought you would be able to and now you're not. Well, that's perfectly fine. We understand this and we can change it. Your realtor, lender, and closing attorney will work together in this case to make the mail away happen with no delays or as few as possible. If you have other questions about this process, please let us know in the comments below. And we would always love to have your suggestions on topics that you'd like to see us cover in future videos. And as usual, we'd be so grateful if you'd leave a like on this video. And if you haven't yet, be sure to subscribe to our channel as we release new videos every week that you're not going to want to miss. Happy house hunting!